Okay, I think maybe we can get started. I want to quickly thanks everyone for joining today. Thanks to Jamie, Paul, Randy for taking time out of these busy schedules that we have working from home to join us here. Tomorrow have a panel discussion. So one of the main intent for our panel discussion today is to talk about sales, right? Sales has been one of the biggest challenge for a lot of our consulting and services companies right now. Traditional sales was usually going out, meeting a customer, trying to sell our offering, sell our services, and try to make sure that we get the trust from the customer, right? But right now, it's becoming a huge challenge, and we are very excited to have Jamie, Randy, and Paul join us to get a little more insights about what's the best way and what's our approach that we can take, right? Maybe before I get started, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name is Venkat Kolli. I'm the CEO here at Oorwin Labs. Oorwin is a SaaS-based AI platform that is used by consulting and staffing companies to manage their sales, their recruitment, as well as HR activities. We are a global product. We are used across multiple geographies. We have customers who use our product in US, India, Singapore, UK, Canada, and a lot of other countries as well. So that's a little introduction about myself. I know we have Jamie also who joined us. A little background about Jamie. Jamie has over 20 years of experience with sales, talent acquisition. She's also an author of 5 books, which is, and thanks Jamie for joining us today. And I will let Jamie introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Randy and Paula after that.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, I'm Jamie Crosby and CEO and founder of Proactivate. I started my company 15 years ago. Prior to that was VP of Sales at Career Builder, and in traditional staffing industry, and really just saw gaps in the marketplace with the traditional staffing model, and as well the online model, to really find great sales and sales leadership and marketing and sales ops talent. We work globally to help support organizations with revenue generating talent. And right now, as you said, it's just things have shifted, and it's a critical time more than ever to make sure that we are filling our teams with the best of the best talent. So we help companies grow and expand geographically or vertically, or replace C players with A players, or just have a funnel of top talent at their disposal in case the top performer were to leave, to really increase revenue and productivity among their teams.
Perfect. Thanks for the introduction, Jamie. I'll move on to Paul. Paul, please. I think you're on mute, Paul, if you're trying to talk. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here. So I'm an author and trainer, specifically on the art and the science of storytelling. And I think the thing that precipitated you inviting me on here is my book, Sell with a Story, which is all about the art and the science of storytelling for sales people in particular. So I ended up interviewing, sales and marketing people all over the world, but also professional buyers, right? Professional procurement managers, to find out what sales stories work and which ones don't. So I spend most of my time researching and writing books on the topic, but I actually earn most of my income from teaching training courses to my corporate clients on, how do you apply these storytelling techniques to your world? What's the structure of a well-told story, at work? How do you create the right emotional engagement? How do you create a surprise ending? What stories do you need? When should you tell them? That kind of thing. So I'm applying the research that went into the books into, hands-on training courses.
Perfect. Thanks, Paul. I think you have a lot of great insights that we are all looking forward for, especially because sales has changed now. The way we have to sell into customers has also changed. So some of your insights on these topics will help us a lot.
Very good.
Perfect. Moving on to Randy.
Yep, thanks, Venkat. Randy Farbach, Director North America Channel for Log Me In. So probably add a little different perspective from my other panelists. My team works through others. So if we're, how do we work with channel partners and trusted advisors to the clients to advocate for your products and services? We work really hard on giving our partner reps a 30-second story that they can pass on to their customers because that might be all that they can remember. But then how do we work in this COVID era? I've hired 2 people I've never met personally. So, I think it's going to be interesting how we leverage, technology and work creatively to keep our businesses going and innovate.
Perfect. Thanks for the introduction, Randy. Just as a background for everyone who's listening in, right? So we have a great panel here. I know Jamie comes with a lot of consulting and staffing background. She's got experience in sales, talent acquisition, has been in leadership role, helping coach also a lot of these newer techniques in which, you can be more effective. And we also have Paul, who has experience with sales. I actually read your book, Paul, yesterday. And it was very interesting read because I personally learned a lot of new things yesterday. So thank you for all the information that you put out for everyone. And also Randy is also joining us. So main intent is Randy has a lot of experience with technology. When the whole world is moving towards technology, there's a lot of focus on what tools can be used, how we can effectively, sell into our customers, right? So our intent is to have the right panel here who can give us the right information, maybe to just get into, exactly what we are looking for, right? So the main reason why we're all here is COVID-19. It's changed everyone's life, irrespective of, where you are in the whole world. One of the most important thing that has changed is the way we sell, right? So we are all traditionally used to sell services by meeting customers, right? So we would ideally schedule a time with our customer, go to the customer and meet that customer. But since there is no going and meeting that customer, we are using technology to drive these conversations, right? I wanted to get some of your thoughts in terms of how selling has changed, right? So in your experience, maybe Jamie, to start with, can you just tell us a little bit about how things have changed on your end, especially with COVID? There's been a lot of layoffs and talent being moving across. So what is your experience with COVID right now?
Well, one of the things I think first and foremost is salespeople in general have had to really go back to the basics. And I think sometimes we forget what it takes to make us successful. And, just the true empathy and problem solving for our clients and really relating to them. And as well, going back to the basics of making sure that, we're filling our funnel with the right things, because we've had to reconsider what people were selling to, what industry ideal client profile. So starting at the very beginning of the funnel, but also just the conversations we're having with prospective clients or current clients. And we've really been intentional about coming to walk alongside of clients and help them in unique ways, teach them how to interview virtually, and talk about the importance of and the critical nature of having top talent at this time. And that's the other thing I would say that has changed, is you have to even look at your ideal candidate for your sales team differently. Right. Sales has moved to a very remote structure. I believe that the environment in sales, some of it will probably never go back, because people have learned that they can do things much more efficiently and effectively and connect with a lot of people in the manner of which we're doing today on Zoom. So I think there are so many things that have changed: our conversations, our ideal profile for candidates, for clients, and then really the conversations we're having to relate to people and share with them and express, truly walking alongside them to help them during this time. And I think the objections that salespeople are facing are different. The sales cycles are longer. So there are so many things we have to arm our teams for. And, to Paul's point, just having a great story when selling and things like that, we have to really prepare our teams for a different set of objections and, really prepare them to have success in a tougher sales environment.
Right. I agree with you. I think the most important thing is let customers also know, like, there are different ways in which you can communicate. I think that's very important. Also, one other point that I wanted to bring up is, especially when you're trying to sell, right? The biggest question that everyone has right now is, how do I find my customer, right? Traditional sales, you would probably go to an event or a conference, or
Right.
you would go and meet the customer at their office. Now, everyone is at home. So how do you find your customer? This is one of the biggest questions that everyone has. So I will let Paul take that and just give us some of your thoughts in terms of how we would go ahead about finding our ideal customer.
Yeah, well, I think this COVID-19 crisis gives you license to reach out to people that you haven't reached out to, at least in a long time, right? Because the world has changed. So I find myself reaching out to clients that I haven't worked with in 8 or 9 years because
Right.
the world is different, you know, or customers that I just worked with a few months ago that I wouldn't normally contact for 3 or 4 or 5 more months. I'm contacting now to say, look, things have changed. Can I help you? What are your needs now that I might not have thought of, that you might not have thought of? I might be able to help you. So I think it's a good excuse to
Right.
reach out to people you haven't reached out in a long time. So clients that have been your clients in the past, or prospects that have been prospects in the past, this gives you license to re-engage with them sooner than you would have otherwise.
And
That's a
Paul, to your point, I think people are more willing to talk right now. You know, people have more time and they're, I guess, just more relatable right now. It's kind of funny. We're all at home or a lot of people are working from home, and kids fly by and animals fly by and you hear, you know, different things, but people are connecting on a more personal level and more willing to have conversations and be known.
right. I think that's a very good point, Jamie, because we ourselves are seeing that, because a customer cannot usually would have said that I don't have time, I need to check my calendar, I'm traveling. I guess a lot of that is not there because technology right now, everyone being at home, it's being easy, and finding time in your schedule has also been a little relatively easy compared to before, is what we're seeing. Maybe to extend that conversation a little, I'll ask Randy a little about technology. Randy, if you can just give us an idea about, how do I find customers, right? Because this has been my biggest question that for everyone is, what's the best way to reach out? Is it by just sending them an email or a text message or, LinkedIn or any other channel? We want to know, like, from your perspective, what would be the right approach to reaching out to our customers?
Yeah, thanks for Kat. I would say I've started using LinkedIn a lot more. That's how you guys found me and we connected. So certainly, activating those engagements. And another way that we're using that Paul mentioned is just another reason to reach out and talk because I mean, we're all a little bit isolated. So
Yes.
we are more open that way. And also through partners. So it doesn't have to be a resale partner, but there could be referral partners or trusted advisor network or people that have adjacent technologies to whatever it is that you're selling. They're selling to your customers, but selling things that aren't competitive. So
Right.
finding ways to connect with them and sharing leads, and you could even do it formally in a referral type program or
Right.
something like that. So asking others for leads is, we found that if we're introduced by somebody, they're more apt to, that they trust, they're more apt to take our call. It's kind of a warmed up lead.
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I think that one of the biggest thing that we are seeing right now is also that, a lot of conversations through emails. People are responding. Like you said, LinkedIn has been, I'm sure the number of users on LinkedIn have probably doubled, is what I feel. And the number of engagements, the conversations that have happening are also going up. LinkedIn is one primary source that we are seeing a good traction in terms of finding new customers. And also in terms of one of the challenges that people are finding on LinkedIn is, say, every morning I wake up, traditionally, 5 years ago, I would open Facebook as the first thing I would do, right? Now, probably I'm using LinkedIn as the first thing I probably open. And on any day, I'm looking, we are actually looking at least like 15 requests coming in, conversations happening. So in one of the questions that everyone is having is, when there are so many requests coming in, any meeting setting up, how do you make sure that you are targeting the right customer, right? How do you know your ideal customer? And how do you make sure you're selling your trust to the customer is a big question that everyone is having. So I'll let Jamie answer that. So Jamie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, in terms of targeting your ideal customer, I think it's really important to ask yourself, and this is a great time to reevaluate, what is my ideal client profile? And I think, the approach that some salespeople take, which is just get a ton of messages out there and see what comes in, doesn't work as well, ever. But especially right now, because we have to really think through not only, what is the title of the decision maker that I can add value to, but we've got to think on a deeper level. What problems do they have that I can help them solve? What opportunities do they have that I can help them go after? And how can I add value? So it's who is the right person, but also right now, what are the right industries? Because that probably has shifted for most of us. And it's really going very deep into those questions of really clearly identifying our ideal client profile and then thinking through, where are they? Where are they out in the marketplace, and how do I capture them there? Where do they go online? What are they reading? What types of groups are they a part of? What types of networking groups do they, or just associations might they belong to? Things like that, and getting in their world. And who else do they associate with? Who do I know that might be able to introduce me? So it's really, really important to identify that very, very clearly. And it's also thinking through, are they somebody who can make the decision to buy my services or products?
Right. I think that's a very important point, Jamie, that you brought up is, reaching out, creating your customer profile, right? What's your ideal customer profile? Because now not every industry is in, because today most of our attendees are from consulting and staffing companies. So most of our companies, our target are usually companies who are hiring, right? One of the biggest challenges to figure out which industries are hiring, right? So it is travel and hospitality for sure has taken a hit now. So that is one industry that we shouldn't be spending most of our time, right? At the same time, it's also created opportunities across different industries. Maybe could be life sciences, could be supply chain, could be other technology, right? So there's been a lot of opportunity that's being created as well. But the most important thing, like you said, is to find your ideal customer, right? Create your customer profile and then start reaching out to them, be it LinkedIn, be it email, be it text. So I think that's a very good point that you brought up, Jamie. That's what we're all looking for, because it's a time for everyone to take a step back and to evaluate, where to go right now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I wanted to also bring up one other question was, how do I build my sales funnel, right? So previously we used to have events and we would just go to the events and find our customers, but how do I build myself as a sales rep, build my sales funnel? Other than the fact that LinkedIn, are there other channels that we can leverage to find customers? I'll let maybe Paul take that and just give us some more of his insights.
I think I'll pass on that one. Maybe Randy has a better insight into building the sales funnel.
Sure.
Okay, sure. Well, I think first we have to customize our message to the time, our message and our product offering. So what worked before the beginning of the year may not work now. We're one of those companies that our sales are going crazy, because we sell tools that GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, GoToMyPC, Bold Chat that lets you have online engagement on your website that people need. And, we've been really busy. But then we still have to create the funnel because we don't know how the economy is going to play out. So I think it's multi-tier. So you have to do the LinkedIn message. You have to do email marketing. You have to do webinars, just like what you're doing. And and then direct messaging with targeted messaging and playbooks, so that you can build that funnel. And again, since I'm in the partner organization, you have partners recommending you, and those come in the middle of the funnel. They're not starting at the top because they're already warmed up. So how can you build out that network of recommenders? And we've gotten a lot of business because people are looking, they're going to their people that they buy from or that they, trust, and they're saying, what do I do? And they're pointing them, in different directions. And so there's a lot of value in that also.
I think too, just to add to that, like knowing your metrics for success is really important. What's your formula for success? So we really have to do everything Randy just said, and then know the numbers that we need to be successful. Because I think right now, a lot of people are in a little bit of panic mode, making sure that they're doing everything they can to control their success. But I always remind our team, and I think it's important for us all to remember, if you know your formula for success and you keep doing the things that have made you successful, and it's going back to those basics, you will continue to achieve success. It does start with making sure that we have the right, profile, right? Both for our own talent as well as who we're reaching out to as prospective clients. But we need to have a specific plan of action for our touches. And one of the things that, I'd recommend too is having a list of target accounts and an action plan of how you're going to reach out to those target accounts over, a specific time frame. So maybe it's a 13-week time frame of touches that you're going to do. And it's not just unsolicited, customized messaging, but really relating to something specifically with them and interacting with them on their own, LinkedIn or Twitter or things like that, like really following them and interacting with them and being able to say something specific to them when you try to connect, or sending a great white paper or your book or a blog or something you think that they would find interesting, or a copy of the webinar, just in a way to really reach people personally and connect versus just mass messaging everybody. And to Paul's point earlier, with a personal story, which makes it so much more impactful.
I agree to that, Jamie. I think that's very important because one of the most important thing, like you brought up, is to, when you reach out to customers, is to have the right messaging. I think that's very important. So here's one question that I wanted to ask you, Paul, was when, sales reps are used to, going meeting customers to sell, right? But now the concept of sending them messages is very important, right? What's the best way to send out messages? I know one of your interesting way that you have been suggesting is come up with a story, right? Can you just give us some more insights on that, on what's the best way when we reach out to customers? How do we send it through a story? I think that's very important. So if you can share some insights, that will be really helpful for us as well.
Yeah, well, I think there are a number of different stories you need. So it's not that there's just one story that everybody needs a sales story, right? Since you just read the book, you'll know there are 25 different types of stories that I kind of laid out there that most salespeople probably need most of these. You may not need all 25, you may need 17 or 13 or something, but it's almost never just one, right? So early on, you'll need a story that's kind of selling yourself, an introductory story about who I am, why I do what I do. You're building rapport, and those personal stories help build rapport. Then later on in the sales process, you're selling your company. So your company's founding story is a good one to tell there. A story about the invention or discovery of the product that you're selling at the moment. A little bit later, when you're really into the kind of the sales pitch itself in the sales process, you'll want to tell a story that I call a problem story, which is a story about the quintessential problem that your product or service solves, so that they can see, oh yeah, I've got that problem too, right? And of course you have the solution for that, right? Then a little bit later in it, you'll want to have stories that will resolve any objections, and then stories to help close the sale, to create a sense of urgency for them to buy now instead of later. There are even stories that you'll tell after the sale is made to build loyalty, right? And each of those are all individual little stories that you tell, as opposed to, I need my sales story. That sounds like a sales pitch, which everybody already has probably, right? but you need
Right.
these little 2 or 3 minute stories all across the 6, 12, 9-month, whatever sales process, the sales cycle that you have, that you tell at the right point in time to help further the sales process. So
Yeah.
it's multiple stories.
Very good. I think that's a very important point, Paul, that you brought up, is having multiple stories, especially when we are trying to reach new prospects, because our first interaction would be different, right? The second interaction would be different. So every time, the whole idea is to go through a story so that, when you reach out to them, you are trying to touch their pain problem. That's probably the most ideal way to reach out to them, right?
Right.
So coming to an extension of that, now that we are trying to reach out to customers, right? Automation has become a big thing now, right? So when we define our value proposition or our story or way which we are interacting with our customers, what's the best? I'll direct this to Randy. What would make sense, right, in terms of technology, and in terms of automation technology? What would be ideal in terms of reaching out, and how do we automate these in such a way that there is an email sent out today, first email, second email, third email, fourth email, and how do you make sure we monitor it and how to monetize it as well? So Randy, can you throw some of your insights on that as well?
Sure. I think a lot of what will help with that is having integrations with different systems. So your marketing systems will probably include an email system that you're using. You also have a CRM like Oorwin that you're using. Maybe a marketing automation that also integrates with that. Maybe a HubSpot or some of the other infusion softwares that or further up the stream, some bigger tools, and all of those will help save time and money by sending emails, by doing webinars like you're doing. Then how do you turn this webinar into a lead gen source? So you can advertise it and promote it. People can watch us, maybe learn a little bit, and then say, hey, yeah, I want to talk to them some more. And then so when they sign up for the webinar, it's a lead gen source. We do that on GoToWebinar. And so how do you give it life? So that creates a lot of top of the funnel. And then just using whatever system you're using to help automate and help the sales reps send the same message, the same story, because my team does stories. I love what you said, Paul. We work on our story that we're telling in different trainings to partners. And, a lot of times we don't have a time for a long story, so we really craft it and hone it and make it resonate, because they're going to pass it on to their customers. So how can they identify with that?
Very good point, Randy. So coming to that, maybe a little extension of the same conversation is when we tell our story, right? One of the thing is customers are asking is, how can it help me, right? So that's probably the biggest question is, how do we help customers succeed? So especially selling consulting as well as staffing services is really difficult, right? Because there's a lot of competition, and right now even challenging because you don't have face-to-face interactions. How do you know what the customer's problem is? Unless you have a conversation, you would not know that. But what's the best way to get their attention and make sure they come and talk to us? Is there an approach to take, to get them out to talk to us right now?
So, well, I have a thought on that. One of the things I think, obviously, I think that we need to be doing a better job of telling stories, but I think we need to also do a better job of getting our prospects to tell us stories, not just to answer our questions, but to tell us real stories. And the reason why is because I think that's the only way that we're going to really understand what the problem is so that we can provide the right solution. So for example, if you're having a conversation with a prospect and you ask them, what's your biggest problem right now? They might say, warehousing. Warehousing is definitely our biggest problem. Well, you really don't know much about what the problem is. You just know where the problem is. But instead, if you ask a question like this, tell me about the moment that you knew your biggest problem was your biggest problem. Oh, now they have to answer you with a story. They have to tell you, that would have been a couple of Saturdays ago when, our CEO got this frantic call from our biggest customer, and they placed an order that didn't arrive. And so we had to go run this special production run to, make the product that they needed because we couldn't find it in the warehouse. And so we shipped it to them at the last minute. It cost a whole lot of money. We lost money on the sale, but we kept them happy. And then we went out to the warehouse and found all the product they needed sitting right where it should have been all along.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Now you know what they mean by a warehousing problem. They have an inventory tracking and management problem, right?
Correct.
So asking questions that force them, that elicit stories and not just short answers, is a much better way to do your discovery than the typical way of asking these short yes or no questions.
Yes. I think that's a very nice, interesting thing, because I'm trying to relate to everything that you said in real life on how we are also selling, because it's very important to understand, what the problem is that they're facing, especially with COVID. One of the biggest challenges we have is most of our customers have all employees, across the world. Right now, some of them have in US, in India, in Singapore, in UK. So now having a diverse global workforce has becoming a big challenge. And now one of the problems that they have is, how do I monitor them, right? What is their location? Where are they staying at? Are they in the country? Are they out of the country? Even if they are in the country, how much time are they spending on the system? Are they able to do their job well? So I think this is a big problem that we are also solving right now, is, enabling and making sure remote workforce is also managed and monitored. So I think that's a very important point.
I think it's important too to get on video, because before this, even though Zoom and GoToMeeting had video options, people would get into meetings and not show their cameras. But you can really tell. You can really tell a lot by watching people, your prospects. You can see if they're really interested and they're engaged, or they're looking around, they're waiting for the meeting to end.
Right.
And we also begin with a little icebreaker, talking about what's going on in your town and how are you feeling, and kind of warm them up, get them telling their own personal stories, and then you can find a little hook to transition to what we want to talk about.
That's true.
Yeah, Randy, I think that's one of the benefits of COVID-19, if you can imagine that there's a benefit to it, is, everybody's got Zoom now or GoToMeeting or whatever. And people are used to using these video calls now. Whereas before, you'd pick up the phone and call somebody and you didn't have that face-to-face interaction. You couldn't read their facial expression, their body language, all that kind of stuff. And now everybody's comfortable with it. So I think we're having better interactions, at least if we're not going to be in the same room with each other. I think we have better interactions now because of this pandemic. So it may be one of the few areas that this has actually made our jobs better and easier.
Right. I think you got it right. So I think it has actually enabled us a lot, so that, we don't really need to go and spend time to then travel to meet them, get an appointment. So at least that part has saved up a lot of our time and improved our efficiency as well. I want to move on to one other question that I'm sure everyone is asking right now is, traditionally, in our services business or consulting or staffing, is we used to have a large field force, right? Field workforce, customers who would do the traveling and trying to sell your solutions and services. I'm going to direct it to Jamie, because I know she's running Proactivate, which is a good sized staffing company with a lot of field workforce. How was your transition from a field sales force into an inside sales workforce? So how is that transition going for you?
Well, we've been a remote company, actually, so we didn't have to transition. Our talent managers and sales consultants and leadership team is spread throughout the country, and we've got an international team member as well. So we were already structured in such a way to have the flexibility that we're now, seeing the whole world have to engage in. And for us, it really, we are a sales talent acquisition firm. We are looking for people who are in sales, working and winning, doing well, where this would be a next step or an upgrade to their career. So we're courting people on behalf of our clients for, opportunities. And those people aren't, coming in during the day to interview, let's just say. And we're having to use video and talk to them at night or during their lunch or whatever. They're top performers. They're doing really well and they're very busy. So our model has always been to use video interview tools and things like that everybody's having to engage in now. So, and luckily we've been a little bit ahead and we didn't have to shift a lot. And it's interesting because we do have, people who go meet with clients in the field, but because our clients are all over, across the United States and some international, we have used video tools for a very long time. Now, I do come from traditional staffing where you are geographically located and you have to be in the field. And I've worked with other CEOs of those types of staffing companies to help strategize on how to, help them bring their teams in the office or at home remotely. So it certainly has been a challenge for some of those organizations to engage in some of the tools and strategies to sell virtually.
Very good, very good. I'm happy to hear that you were already ready for it. So that's good thing, especially now because you don't have to work on the transition part. So, but a lot of companies are struggling right now with the transition of moving everyone remote. But like you said, good part is the customer is also remote. So it's easy to sell. And when you have your customer also remote, your employee candidate also remote, it's actually very helpful as well right now.
Right.
I just want to move on to talk about sales in general, especially one is, with COVID, a lot of companies have changed their offerings, right? They've changed all their services, changed, a lot of these come up with new ideas and initiatives that are targeted to customers. When you have these changes, how do you target to customers and how do you make sure that customers get that messaging such a way that they would engage with us? So this is a big question that's a lot of companies are asking is when my services and my offerings have changed, I either have added or modified my services. How do I communicate to my potential prospects and customers? Right? So I'll let Paul give us some more insights on, how to tackle this problem and what would be a good approach for it.
Well, I can just tell you what I did, and it's similar to what I mentioned earlier. It was just another excuse to reach out to them more frequently than I would have. So, if I've normally in my CRM software, if I've got a 9 to 12 month cycle that I'm reaching out to prospects, in March and April, I changed all that. Well, I'm going to reach out to all of them this month, all of them, right? Now, I didn't get to all of them because I just didn't have quite that much time, but I tried. And that kind of reset my clock. So some of them I'd talked to as recently as a month or two earlier, but I put them right back on because I've got something new to sell. Now, in my business, I used to teach face-to-face. Well, COVID changed all of that. And I spent, a month or two in my basement, creating a video studio to where I could, create online content. And once that was ready and up for sale, I got back into sales mode and started afresh with everybody because I have new products to sell. And so it's not that I used a different communication vehicle. I use the same one that I normally did, which is just email or phone calls, but I did it more frequently and I used the new product as a new reason to reach out. And I think everyone else can do the same thing.
Well, and it gives us a chance to have a conversation, letting them know, we're finding creative ways to bring you the value we've always brought you or to walk alongside you during this time. And I think that conversation is just a very personal conversation of would love to connect with you to see how you're working through the challenges of this unprecedented time and share with you some creative ways that we have found to really walk alongside of our clients during this time and add additional value. And so that's, for any of us, we can customize that message, but we can go back to the people we've always worked with. Or if our new service or product, is a new ideal client profile, we can reach out to them with that message.
Right.
I would to add to that, I would say that we created bundles of products. I mean, right at the end of March, we created an emergency work kit and gave it out, thousands of them out to hospitals and highly impacted, segments that they couldn't instantly work remotely. And so I think, especially bundled free trials, it's an empathy. Hey, I understand. Why don't you try our product and for an extended period of time, and let's kind of date each other, and you can try it out, and then maybe we can see if it makes sense to transition you to some sort of a paid plan. That way you get to really get a taste of it, and we're willing to give a little bit of our product in order to get you interested.
Right. I think that's very important that we provide more offerings to our customers, and I think that's a good idea, Randy, is to provide free trials. I think that's very important to provide. But it gets really difficult, especially for a lot of our listeners who are in consulting and staffing industry. It gets really tough to give anything for free because our expertise is there. We can give certain set of things free, some time free, but ideally it's not possible to give 100% time free as well, right? So
Right.
also wanted to, I know this was a question that I wanted to direct to Paul, was one of the problems that people are facing is trust, right? Selling trust is becoming a very big problem. How do you, when you reach out to LinkedIn, people on LinkedIn or all these social media, how do I sell my trust? How do I make sure they trust us so that they want to start doing business with us?
Yeah, so that's a question I asked in my research too. So when I was interviewing procurement managers, so professional buyers, I asked them, what is it that salespeople can do to earn your trust? And the two most popular answers I got to that question was, one is, tell me when you make a mistake before I find out from somebody else. So if you're working on my business and you screw up, you let me know. I don't want to hear about it from somebody else. That tells me that I can trust you. And I think the reason for that is obvious. The second answer they gave me, the most popular answer was, tell me when you can't help me. And the reason for that, I think, is because if you're honest with them about when you're not the best solution, they'll be more likely to believe you when you tell them that you are the best solution for them. Now, of course, the problem with both of those is it usually takes a long while to work with somebody before those two things happen. Before you accidentally make a mistake or you come across a situation where, my company's not the best solution for you. So you can't do that when you're selling. You can only do that after you already have the relationship. What you can do, however, is tell them stories about your other clients when that happened. So you tell them a story about a time where you made a mistake with a client, but you called them, immediately and told them about it, and then you fixed it right away and everything was okay. That way they'll believe you that, oh, well, if that ever happens when I'm working with you, you'll do the same thing, right? And with the other one with, tell me when you can't help me. I mean, that's kind of like the classic, what's that Christmas movie, Miracle on 34th Street, where the Macy's Santa is sending the kids to Gimbals if Macy's doesn't have the toy that they're looking for, which you think is a terrible idea. Never send somebody to your competitors, but it made all the parents trust them because, oh, I'll always go to Macy's first because if they don't have it, they'll tell me right where to go, right? So it's the same kind of a thing. You tell them a story, about a time where you weren't the best solution for, a problem that your prospect had, and you told them that. And that way they'll believe you that if it happens to them, you'll be just as honest with them. So those stories are stories you can tell during the sales process that will build trust immediately.
I think that's very important because building trust is very important for, especially when we are selling services. Unless we have trust, they wouldn't take any of our people, they wouldn't, engage with us, have a conversation. So finding that initial trust through honest answers probably is the right way, like you said, Paul. So I think that's,
well, in fact, I'll just give you a quick example of that. I'll tell you when I'm not the best solution for you. The person I interviewed in the book was an IT manager at Kroger, and he was buying IT solutions, and he had two salespeople call on him. The first salesperson, every time the IT manager told him, here are the 3 or 4 problems we're having, the salesperson said, oh, we can fix that. We can fix that. I have a solution for that. I mean, didn't even let him finish his sentence. We've got a solution for that. The next guy that came in, when he went through his list of problems, the salesperson said, yeah, that's a tough one. I haven't run into that before. Let me go work on that. Okay. He hired the second guy, and he hired even though the guy didn't come back and tell him he could solve the problem. He hired that guy because he knew that guy's taking this problem seriously. He recognizes that this is a cutting edge problem, that if you think you've already run into this problem and solved it, then you didn't listen to my problem well enough. This is a brand new problem. Nobody's faced this before. So he didn't trust the first guy because he claimed that he had the solution to everything. He trusted the second guy who was thoughtful about it and said, let me go work on that before I tell you I can solve it.
Right, right.
I love your story, Paul, because I feel like that's the fastest way to get a client to stop talking and give you information about how you can help them when you interrupt them with, oh, I can fix that. I can do that. We can do that. And the other way to build trust is to not say what you can help them with before you've ever talked to them. So like, that's the worst way to try to get an appointment. You know,
Right.
I can help you upgrade your team, or I can help you whatever.
Yeah.
You don't know what they need help with. So
Right.
I would love to learn more about your organization to see if and how I can add value is
Right.
a better, that's a better way to build trust. Like you don't know anything about me yet. So don't tell me you know, you can help me.
Right. Yeah. Would you trust a doctor who wrote you a prescription before the examination? Like, of course not.
Right.
I think
Exactly.
that's a good explanation, right? You wouldn't trust a doctor who does that. So I think that's very nice. Thanks for all your insights, Paul and Jamie. One other question that I wanted to highlight is, with everything going digital, a lot of customers are getting used to buying things with a click, right? They want everything instant, be it services, be it a product, be it, anything, right? This is a question for Jamie is, do you see that where customers come and say, I need it right now. I need it like today within a click. So if this is the approach that people are, customers are getting to, how do we solve that? Because people, companies either know their problem and sometimes they'll come and say they would want it now. Everything is now, but in reality, it's not today. It's on a certain date. But how do you tackle that problem?
Well, I think we have to set a realistic expectation. So in our business, if they have an open sales seat, let's just say, that can cost $1 million in revenue annually. So it's expensive. So they are urgent, and maybe they worked with their internal team that was bringing them unemployed candidates, and they are like, oh my gosh, I needed this person months ago. Right. So, do you have resumes like tomorrow? And we have to really back up and set expectations because, our model is such that we're going to bring you 3 people that are guaranteed to match your ideal candidate profile, but it's within a few weeks. It's not like yesterday, but we're not slapping resumes. We spend a couple hours going through a really in-depth qualification process, but we have to explain that. I mean, if I've talked to a client, I've talked to the CEO or VP of sales, I've already explained that. But maybe now they're in this urgent mode and it's somebody else calling their talent manager saying, why don't I have this right now? And we have to go back to say, and the way to explain it, I think, to answer your question best is your ultimate goal is to get the best of the best person, not the best of the worst. Now I can bring you the best of the worst tomorrow because they're all over, online looking, but you're looking for people working and winning who are doing well. And our goal is to bring you the best of the best, high quality, and only bring you a few to look at so we can use your time well, so that you can achieve this $5 million, quota or growth or whatever it is. So we have to go back and relate it to them. So here's what you can expect from us. And then we consistently give them updates, each week of what we've done, because obviously for us, if we're bringing 3 great people, we're looking at and qualifying hundreds along the way and talking to multiple just to save their time and bring the best of the best. I think clients feel better when they know the process. We communicate with them along the way and we set proper expectations.
Right. I think that's very important because setting up expectations upfront is to not, whenever customer comes to you and says, I want this today, is not to say, yes, you'll have it tomorrow. But to tell them that, no, it won't happen tomorrow, but let me get back to you on when it can be done. So I think sometimes telling no is also very important to make sure that we come back with the right answer on when it's done, so that you don't want to tell them, I'll give you tomorrow, and then you go back and realize you cannot do it tomorrow, and then come back and tell them, no, I'm sorry. This is very common. I've seen this happen many times, be it with our employees, be it with customers. It happens even with vendors, right? So they come and say, yeah, I'll give you tomorrow, but then it never happens. That's the problem, is the trust factor
Right.
is broken.
Well, you got
a
to
lot.
do what you say you're going to do too, because then, if you don't do that, people are definitely antsy and anxious and want to know, and that's not okay.
Yes, yes.
So if you need to reset an expectation, do it, but don't just not follow through.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I know we have 10 more minutes for our webinar today, but if anyone has, I know this was a housekeeping thing, but if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and put that in the Q&A box right here, and we are happy to discuss that. But before we ended our discussion, there's a quick question that I had, and I'm sure this is probably for a lot of our listeners, is we all have offices right now, right? With COVID-19, the biggest question is, do we need an office at all? Does it make sense to have an office? And if remote working is so good, why do I need an office? This has been a question for everyone. So I will let Randy, Jamie, Paul, just give us some of your thoughts on, is office really required? Because if remote selling is working, and remote recruitment is working, and remote business is working, why do I really need another office to sit at? And start paying for rentals, paying for operations, paying for people and all that. Maybe I can just get rid of that, right? So what are some of the thoughts on that?
Well, I'll chime in. We did a company survey, so we have 4,000 employees, and it came back that the majority wanted some combination of work from home and be in the office. I mean, we are social animals. You get some synergy by having those water, coffee conversations, walking around, being in there. But I think our offices are going to be set up differently. They'll be probably just workstations that you go plug into, rather than having your permanent desk.
Right.
And I was one of those that raised my hand for that. I like to go in and see people, but have the option. But that changed a few years ago. Our company was like, no, we really want you to work in an office. So we've seen that shift.
It's surprising. You have GoToMeeting. The product you sell is to work remote, but they want you to come to the office. That's nice.
Yeah.
I know. Thanks for all your insights, Randy, Paul, and Jamie. We have some questions from some of the folks here, and I'm just going to read some of these questions, and I'll let you guys answer. I think the first question was something that I can answer is, will this webinar be recorded and available so that I can share? Yes, the answer is yes. We have this recorded. It will be available on Oorwin's website. So at any point you can just go back and share this. Also, the next question we had is, can you give us some tips for following up with cold calling and leaving voice messages? I think the biggest problem right now is that people are having is they have contact numbers. And what happened is, with everyone being remote, now a lot of their contact numbers are not valid. And a lot of these cold calling voicemails go into their office numbers. So what is the best way to solve that? And what are tips in which we can reach out to them? I will let Jamie maybe give us some more insights on that. On cold calling.
I'm sorry.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I think, following up on cold calls is difficult. So my best suggestion, first of all, I mean, this is just one little tip, is always when you're leaving a message, make it brief. Say at the beginning your name and phone number. Sound familiar. Don't make it sound cold. Hey, Randy, it's Jamie at 214-763-2342. Hope you're great. And, something brief, and then repeat your name and number again. Not, hi, this is Jamie Crosby calling from Proactivate to talk to you about. And at the end of the message, always say, hey, if we don't connect, I'll try you back tomorrow. So that increases the probability of them calling you back significantly by stating, if we don't connect, here's what I'm going to do next. You also don't feel silly the next day when you do call back, or whenever you do call back, because now you're just doing what you said you would do. But I mean, it's just not, it takes multiple touches to get somebody. And so I would not just cold call. I would have a targeted list of ideal clients. I would connect with them on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on any type of interactive social sources that you can, and actually start communicating with them. I would look for mutual connections on LinkedIn to get introduced to them. And a call would be one of the ways I would try to connect, but I would be emailing, I would be sending LinkedIn, and it wouldn't be just with a generalized message. It would be more personal and, specific to them.
We are having tremendous success offering to meet people for lunch. And in this time, it sounds really weird, but we have Uber Eats codes. So that gets them interested. And if they agreed to meet with us, we'll send them an Uber Eats code so they can order lunch and have it delivered to their home.
That's great.
And then we can meet. So then, well, who doesn't want a free lunch? And that's how we used to sell. And we figured out a way to do it virtually. So my team's really had success getting responses, getting meetings, even team meetings and trainings. Hey, we'll do a lunch and learn with your team. We'll send them all individual Uber Eats codes. They can get it during the meeting or whenever, but then, we're feeding them, we're giving them something.
That's very, very nice. That's a very good idea, Randy. I think that's something we all can pick up is do a lunch and learn, but send them lunch because we can't meet them in person. Perfect. So I think I'm going to move on to the next question here is, we have seen that relationships do matter in selling. During a remote selling, what is the best approach to have sound relationship with the buyer meeting for the first time? Is it going to be product-driven interest by the buyer, or there could be any other ways? Please advise. I'll let that to Paul. Paul, do you have any insights on that?
Well, I think the question after that is directed at me, so I'll let somebody else answer this one.
Okay. I'll just direct it to you, Jamie.
Okay, so how to develop a relationship initially, is that what you said? I want to make sure I understand the question.
Yes, for the first time, yes.
Well, so I don't think that's how relationships work, right? A relationship happens as we exchange information, as we add value in each other's lives. And I would say the best way to connect initially, I think the relationship comes after information is exchanged and you've added value and it's been worthy of their time. But the initial way to connect is not what people were taught initially in sales. Like, oh, I'm going to comment on the school they went to or how many kids they have, or I saw a picture of their dog. That's not really the best way to connect. The best way to connect is credibility and adding value. So earn the right to talk to them. And I think that's the key. Speak their language. Don't talk to, for example, I don't talk to a VP of sales about filling a job. They don't care. They care about achieving revenue goals. Okay. And I'm able to connect with them because I talk about the fact that I was a VP of sales at Career Builder, and I give a story, a small little snippet of how I worked with another VP of sales in their industry to help with this one issue. So it's an issue that most people face. Want to see if and how I could add value for them, something like that. But it has to be a way you can earn credibility from the beginning. And so if it's an appointment with somebody in the beginning, the way to get them to start sharing information with you so you can develop a relationship is to start the meeting in a strong way. Not thank you so much for meeting with me because you're so important and I'm so glad you met with me, but I'm so glad we have the opportunity to connect together today. Let me just take a quick step back and share with you a little bit about my background and how I thought we could use our time well together today. So not like, how's the weather, but here's a quick snippet of how, why you should talk to me. And then you get much better data when you're asking questions about their challenges or problems because they think you might actually be able to help.
Yes. I think that's very important. You cannot do the sale on the first call itself, but you need to build relationship. So relationship doesn't happen on your first calls. I think that's a very important point.
Absolutely. The only thing you can do is sell yourself out of having those next calls because you talk too much.
Right.
So,
And we've adopted a practice as a company of we put on the footer of our signature, we put some statements about ourselves, personal statements. So like mine, you'll see family guide, meditation geek, hiking, biking nut, and you know, and reading addict. So that, you know, so that automatically they know a little bit about me, and a lot of times they ask about that, you know, well, what's the meditation geek? Or, you know, that type of stuff. And we've adopted that as a company. And then you have your title and everything. So it begins, you know, giving them some things to maybe connect with.
I think that's a very good idea right now, Randy, is to have something on your signature that tells about you. That'll be a conversation starter, especially when you're trying to reach out for the first time. Good. So I'll move on to the next. I know we are on time right now, but we have 3 more questions. I'm just going to quickly read them across. Paul, thank you for the insight. This is for you, Paul. Paul, thank you for the insight with regards to building trust. On that note, I would like to understand your perspective. What would be the best strategy to grab attention of a prospective customer whom I will not be able to get hold often? The challenge is that if I mention in the call that I'll get back to you on an issue, I may not get hold of the person next time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you clearly need to say something that will get them to call you back if you can't count on being able to contact them directly. And you have the same trouble with storytelling. You need to say something at the beginning that gets them to want to listen to your story. So, and I call that the hook. So I think the same thing would work in a phone call, right? Is you need to tell them something that will get them to want to call you back. And so, for example, you might say, hey, I ran into somebody who works in a similar position to you at another company, and they have the same problem you told me last time you were having, and they found a really creative solution. I just wanted to tell you about that. Right. Okay, well, gosh, they're going to want to call you back now, right? Because you know something about somebody who has a similar problem in a similar situation, and they're going to tell you about it. So you'll want to call them back, and you're going to tell them the story when you do get them on the phone, but you can't tell them the whole story on the message. You can only tell them the hook up front that will get them to want to call you. And so it serves the same purpose.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Paul, for that. I think I'm going to move on to the next question. As someone, I don't know, they're asking is, I'm going to start my HR consulting business. Is it the right time to start a business? Should I hire people? I think this is a question for Jamie.
I mean, in general, I would say it's a great time to hire talent. I say that for a few reasons. I think we've all taken stock in what's important in our lives, and you know, are really considering, are we in the right careers? Are we spending our time wisely? Is this something that I really, you know, love, and where I can really help people, and those types of things? So for that reason, one. The other is, you know, if you want to come out ahead of your competition, a lot of people are sitting around waiting and worrying and not sure what to do and not taking action. But if you really want to come out and be ahead of competition, now is the time to move your business forward, or your business idea in this case, and get great people. And so I think talent will be what takes sales organizations to the next level, because you have to have better than the best right now to overcome some of the challenges in the marketplace. And this is not a time to sit back and wait and wonder, but to get ahead and out in front of the people that are, and be prepared to come out of the pandemic with success, instead of just sitting in it waiting to see what everyone else does.
Right. I think that's a very good point, Jamie. I think that right now, if I were to answer that, is yes, there is no right time in general. When you want to do a business, is to do it is the most important thing, you know, at any
right
point. I think we have one last question. Is what are the thoughts on reaching to potential clients on social media like Instagram and Facebook? What are ways to engage or contact B2B if they're reluctant to make purchase during that time? I will direct that to you, Randy, because I'm sure this GoToMeeting, LogMeIn does a lot of investment into different social media. So can you just give us some more insights on what is the best social media channel that would be right to reach out to customers on?
I think it depends on your client base. So where are they hanging out? If they're larger, you know, maybe not Instagram and Facebook, but if they are smaller, those may work. We use a tool called Everyone Social that manages our social outreach, and we're all encouraged to post on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. That helps manage that. I've always been challenged with how do I turn a LinkedIn post to a lead. I want to see it directly. I think there are some tools that are trying to do that, whether it's a link to a, hey, tell me more, it's a link to a web form, or we always have a call to action. Hey, if this interests you, if this, password management and security product that we have, is really, interesting to you, private message me, or, get them to reach out. And I've actually had a few people reach out, but not just a general post, but with an action. What do you want me to do?
Right. Perfect. Yeah, thanks for that overview. Again, I know we are 5 minutes over the time that we had planned for. I want to thank Randy, Jamie, and Paul for all your insights. This has been really helpful. I'm sure a lot of our attendees have shared some of the results, and I'll tell you, 80% of the people who have attended found it very interesting, and they would want to listen in again. And some of them even asked about sharing this video. So I'm sure this is very helpful a lot of people, because right now more than ever people are trying to figure out how to sell right now, right? What are new ways to do it? Again, thanks for ways to sell, storytelling. I've learned a lot of new things myself today, which I'm going to start doing during over the next few weeks, is try different ways to sell better. Again, I want to thank all of you for taking time on your busy schedule to join us. I look forward to talking to you individually as well, but thanks again for this call.